Good to see you.
We're ready, Gilbert.
All right. Okay. We start with a vow and the four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. This class is going to be a little bit different. It's what I would say a work in progress, not necessarily finished. It's something that I don't know how long it'll keep going. It's from some personal experiences that I've received from teaching the Dharma, and it's very interesting because I started in LA and then went to San Francisco, and each time I kind of up the amount of the profoundness of the wisdom that I was presenting. And then when I got to Michigan, I really kind of went a lot deeper, and I had the benefit of speaking to many people there, and some very profound discussions that stimulated in terms of my own practice, certainly theirs as well. And that was something that was of quite a benefit. But what it did was it started rolling all of these concepts together. And I guess what you could say is my experience has been as if I'm inside and simultaneously outside a rock polisher. If you ever seen a rock polisher, it's a big canister that has abrasive material inside, and it just keeps rolling and rolling until it polishes the material. And so with this particular type of a practice, it's one that started on its own. After I came back from the retreat, I kept thinking about things and thinking about things, and I'm going to call this experience rolling, because what it feels like is that there's certain principles of Buddha Dharma, and they roll, and then it says, "Well, take a look at me," and then there's questions that come up as we're doing this. There's many questions. So when we talk about it, and we talk about Buddha Dharma, we see that when we say, all right, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings, and you can say, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self nature, meaning that there are no sentient beings to deliver. And so then you start rolling with that and say, well, then what am I doing? What is this all about? If there's no sentient beings and I'm doing this, and am I doing it? Or is the Buddha doing it? Or the Buddha mind doing it? You see how it begins to roll, and it gives you different facets of it. And what I found was that sometimes I would be responding with this foot straddling samsara, and then the other foot in the absolute. And one would present something, the other one would counter, and it just kept going in this way. It's quite interesting. But let me read a little bit of what I wrote. I had two major experiences during the night, some very weird dreams, as if I was had eaten an anchovy pizza before I went to bed. They were very bizarre dreams, but they converted into Buddha Dharma, which was a very strange thing. So it was taking something that was mundane activity, and then all of a sudden it serves as a metaphor for what we're doing. And the stimulus of this was when I got back from the last retreat. I said, it's time for me to wash my bedding. So I proceeded to wash the bedding, And it took me all day because you have comforters and the cover underneath the sheets next to the mattress. Those are pretty thick, so it takes a while, and you have to keep pulling them out and putting them back in to make sure it's not rolling up and the middle is all wet still. So it was quite a bit of a process to do that. And then finally, at the end of the night, I put everything back together, and so I have this clean sheets. And I jumped into the bed. Well, it's like I don't really jump anymore. I crawl into the bed, I'd say. But it felt nice. It felt like really good. I'm going, oh, it feels so good to have these clean sheets. And I made sure I put all special softener tissues in there to make it smell good. And I felt how comfortable it was. And that's my thoughts as I was going to bed. But let me see if I can get to read some of this. This is kind of a preface to what I'm going to be talking about, but some of it's already what I'm talking about. The Buddha kept rolling into my mind. It does not increase nor decrease, but clearly there's a difference. And clearly, oh, hold up a second here. Oh, sorry. I'm reading page 2. I brought a printer from work, and it has this capacity to shuffle what I printed. Okay, let's start again. I'm sorry about that. I decided to clean all the bedding on my bed. I cleaned everything, as I mentioned. And then I said, and I was sure I put all the bedding back onto the bed, making sure everything was smooth and there were no creases. And then even that began to make me think about the Buddha Dharma, just this mundane event, because it's like the Buddha Dharma. The sheets, they may appear to be wrinkled, but in fact, they're not wrinkled. And you straighten them out, and then it has this appearance of being smooth. The wrinkles only come from causes and conditions, but it doesn't affect the purity of those sheets. It is just that they look wrinkled until you smooth them out. And so it said, as I slept, my mind kept rolling over the process of cleaning the bed. Was like purifying the mind. The attention of the mind was directed towards the difference between the soiled bedding and the clean bedding. It sensed the same bedding, but a different feel. The same bedding, but a different feel. This is a lot more profound than it sounds, because it is really deep. As you're dealing with samsara or you're in samsara, as you begin to practice, it's the same place, but it's a different feeling. It's not governed by the self. So one is here and you see it, but already, even before you're enlightened, there's some purification going on. Things are changing. The mind is not responding to emotional discriminations or differentiations. The mind is there. Everything looks like it's the place, like they say, the mountains are still the mountains, the rivers are still the rivers, but there's something different. The French say je ne sais quoi. It's something you don't really know, but it's different. And that's where I got onto this late night carnival ride. That was my entry into it. It's the same but different. And so kind of hang in there with me, because it's something that you're going to encounter as you go along, and you probably already encountered things like this. So surely there was no difference in the bedding. I did not add anything to the bedding that was made it different. Likewise, I didn't take away anything from the bedding in its original nature to clean it. And yet the difference was so striking. Now, mind you, all of this is occurring while I'm asleep. and um, and so as I slept, I had to wake up to write it down, or else I'll lose it. I that happens quite a bit. Where I'll say I'll remember it and do it, and I don't remember it. So this is just things I'm writing down upon awakening in the middle of the night from what's going on in the mind, which I call rolling. The Buddha kept rolling into my mind. It does not increase nor decrease, but clearly there was a difference, and clearly there was no difference. And you go, what? But this is what's going through my mind. It's rolling through. There's a difference and no difference. And it's going right to Nagarjuna's the extinction of existence and non-existence. Everything, all of the apparent contradictions are becoming resolved, but they're not necessarily resolved in the samsaric sense, in the cognitive mind. They're being resolved in mind. It just mind says, come on in. Okay, sacred, come on in. Profane, come on in. It's okay. We can deal with all this stuff. We can handle it. You belong to mind anyway. So this is what the mind is presenting to me in the middle of the night. One could make the argument why the clean bedding, because the original nature is there, and yet the process of cleaning the bedding made a difference. So we say this is the original nature, but why does it feel different? The original nature feels different than the mind that you're using that's caught up in vexations. It moves along smoother. It's like pulling, I guess um, both female and male would understand pulling out a new razor to use it. Whether you're using it on your legs or you're using it on your face, when you pull a new razor out, unless it's one of those cheapy brands that $5 for $1, you feel different. Everything's smooth. It rolls really easily. Well, there's a word again, rolls. It's that way. And that's the same way with the mind that we're using. Everything rolls a lot easier. It's not getting stuck on differentiation or discrimination or vexations of any kind. It's rolling along in a good way. And I'll come back to this rolling in part 2 if we can get to it tonight. Okay. And truly, in this mundane world, I created a bit of Pure Land on earth. It was not created by the imagination. In this world, it was created by the sincere effort that made a difference. So when I talk about this in terms of the Pure Land, that only applies to me and to those that begin to practice it themselves. But there's something there. It's very, very interesting that there's something that happens there that makes the world a little bit easier, makes it a little bit cleaner. Yeah, we still get sick. We still have problems. We still have money. The tax man doesn't leave us alone. Whatever there is, it's still there, but we can handle it. We understand this belongs to samsara, but we're of a different clan than a sentient being, and that's the part that makes the big difference. Is then what are we? And saying, well, I don't feel like a Buddha, but this mind that we use is just the Buddha mind. But it's not in a sense that we can describe from here in this world. It's different, and that's the part that you have to realize and get around it. You can't just play at it. There's something that you have to do. It becomes what Master Sheng said was like a piece of sweet taffy that's stuck to the back of your throat. It's very, very sweet, but you want to resolve it. You still know that something's sticky on the back of your throat. It's sweet, but it still needs to be resolved. And this is where this rolling comes in, because it keeps coming in and saying, looking at it from the samsaric side, looking at it from the absolute side, and it simply occupies the mind into this uh, big wad of doubt. And so it's kind of right now a involuntary Watteau. But the mind does that sometimes. It won't let you go. I imagine if I went, and did a lot of different things and didn't read the Dharma or anything, it would begin to dissipate. But why? Why would I? This is something that I will continue to ride this wave until it dissipates. But the thing is that it's something that I can use to present to all of you, this kind of looking at things, because there's many things that we look at and we see and we don't really understand it, or they don't make sense to us, like delivering innumerable sentient beings of self-nature. The self-nature is the true nature. And I had one student that was really hung up on the word self-nature. So I said, don't say it that way, then just say true nature. But this true nature does not have an untrue to it. That's the sticky part about this. There's no untrue part of true nature. There's nothing that's there that we say that doesn't exist. Even if you have a foul thought in your mind for a moment and it's gone, for a moment it existed in mind, and it's still lodged somewhere. In the Yogacharans would say it's lodged in the Alaya Vijnana. We say as earth people, it's lodged in our memory. But it's something very interesting that we look at this and begin to question what is there in terms of how we look at it. And it's something that I was talking to, I don't know if Michael's here or not today. He's in Germany, so it's probably really middle of the night for him. That he's always sending me stuff about this scientist doing this and this scientist doing that. And I keep telling Michael, your knowledge or your realizations are far beyond these guys. And he's beginning to see it, because he truly understands right view. And these people are trying to work on quantum physics with all of these sets of givens that apply only to samsara, only to this dream, but they're not self-proving. They can't be that way. And hang in there with me in terms of what I'm saying, because this is something that when we look at it, it's something that little by little I'll hit a chord that you can understand. But it's this whole process of looking at things and saying, what if the that this world is a dream? What can we really show as proof that the cosmos revolves around us? Think about that. We measure everything from this little grain of sand in the cosmos going outward. We don't even know where we're at. Most people don't know where we're at. We're this tiny little grain of sand in a whole group of stars, and whatever revolves around those stars, millions of them in a galaxy. But there's many galaxies, uncountable ones, and the galaxies also are moving in a spiral around each other. They're all moving in accordance with everyone else. So it's very, very strange. But how do we measure the human experience in this and say, yeah, that for sure is this way? I'm just giving you food for thought to kind of look at it as if you're outside the box. So, talking about the quantum physicists and mechanic people, they're always trying to think outside the box, but their fault is that they still try to bring it relevant to this world. And if this world is impermanent, then they're using the wrong gauges to try to measure things. They say that a bodhisattva in a snap of fingers can make 5 kalpas pass. That's not something that we can even begin to understand because we measure it in earth time. We don't really know if there's even a passage of time. Only here, the relevancy is we're governing everything from the sun revolving around us, but that's not a constant in the cosmos. It's only in this little tiny solar system that's part of the Milky Way. So what I'm trying to do is get you to think outside the box, the whole box of this cosmos, and say the proportions there of being on Earth are inapplicable. It is why one sutra says that 5 billion Buddha worlds can be on a single strand of hair without any protrusion. So if you looked at the strand of hair, you would not be able to see all these 5 billion Buddha worlds. What does that mean? And what they're trying to say is, don't take this samsaric world, this world that we see as a given, as a constant. It's not a constant. It's constantly changing. If you would have come here just a few 90,000 years ago, you would have had to have been wearing some really heavy parkas because of the ice age. So there's nothing constant to it, as we notice now with the global environmental changes that are happening because of global warming. So we look at things differently. We look at it with this profound wisdom. It doesn't mean that we, just because of that, we don't go to work and say, Gilbert gave me a free pass, you don't exist, I don't exist, and say, well, your paycheck doesn't exist. Boom. So much for that argument. So it doesn't work in that way. But nevertheless, it's something that's important. While we're here on Earth, we still have to do the things that we need to do. Okay, we go back to the regular program. I often tell the story of Master Sheng speaking about blowing the dust off the plate, where he'd go, you just blow the dust off the plate. Underneath the plate its luster is so bright. And in doing so, restored the plate to its original luster. When I asked him, where did the dust go? My point was that the dust is part of the true nature as well. We were both speaking the same language. He was speaking of an accomplished practice, and I was speaking of the process of that accomplishment, meaning that we have to see that the dust and the plate are originally mine. And in this way, not only does the luster of the plate be restored, but so too the dust. Everything is by nature then purified in that way. It's hard for us to understand that. And it took me some time to figure out that part in terms of that Shifu saying one thing, I'm saying another, rolling it, we're saying the same thing. It's a different viewpoint. And this is kind of what I'm telling you, so that when we go around and we we are using the viewpoints. Sometimes we roll from the viewpoint of samsara, sometimes we roll from the viewpoint of the absolute. The sutras sometimes talk in samsaric terms, and quite a bit of the earlier sutras were more like that, where the Mahayana sutras and the Tathagatagarbha sutras are speaking in relation to the absolute and the Buddha nature. And it doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. One of them speaking from the samsaric side, one speaking from the absolute. Madhyamaka speaking right down the middle. Chan, that's what we did. We followed Madhyamaka school, the Yogacara school. We brought all of these components in, even part of the Abhidharma, into our practice to make it this perfected practice. That's what we're doing. This whole year I've spent teaching perfected wisdom. It's the perfected wisdom comes from perfecting the wisdom, from you actually rolling up your sleeves and doing it. And so it's one thing to read it, and when you read it, you have a very good grasp of it in samsara. So as soon as you say grasp, then all of the bells and whistles go off. Oh, you're grasping something. Quite so. You're grasping something. It can't be found there. Nevertheless, we still have to present it. So we present it. But again, as I mentioned before, this is simply the platform upon which to work off of. But this is a work in progress all the time. You're twisting that diamond and looking through different facets. And if you do this enough, when you sleep, the mind's going to teach you. It's going to show you and say, hey, I know you're sleeping, but this won't affect your sleep. But boom, 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 and it'll lay out different things for you to contemplate. And if you're fortunate to do that, then you have to get up and write it down, because you will not remember it. It's very, very difficult. But if you can do that and remember it, then you just go, I just woke up and this is important. And then you write it down. And you're going, yeah, but what does it have to do with cleaning the sheets? Because it's this whole idea of whether something is stained or unstained, what its original nature is. In samsara, of course, we have to clean the sheets. But in fact, in the absolute, there's no sheets to clean. It's originally pure. You see, so it's working from both sides, that we still have to carry out the function in this samsaric world. But the meaning is mine, which is beyond words and phrases. But we simply don't just stop thinking about things and say it's beyond words and phrases, I'm just waiting for it to pick me up. It won't happen that way. You have to work it. You have to process it. And the more sincere you work it, the more that you study, the more that you listen to lectures, the more you have faith in what you're hearing in the lecture and yourself, the more it's going to work. And the worst thing that could happen is that if I'm wrong about this, you're still going to have a better life than not doing anything at all, because all I'm doing is saying to put down the self. So it's very interesting. Okay, moving on. I know this particular one's going to take at least two sessions to get through. It seems so simple, but it's actually very deep. But what I want to do is give you the feel of it. If I can pass that on to you, then in your own self-practice, you can begin to use this and contemplate it. Okay. The mind kept directing me to look, look, look. It makes a difference. It is the same bedding, yet purified with actually nothing purified. And so you go, what? What does that mean? No, but the mind's saying, write this down. Write this down. It's the same one bedding, yet it's purified without anything being purified, because everything is mind. The solution to it is because it is mind, the mind itself is purified. We see things as sacred and profane because of our discriminations, and we're assuming that all of this stuff is actually happening. In this world, yes, it does happen, and we have to understand that. Who are the people that, then I forgot the name of the people that feel that they don't, when the police come to arrest them, they show a card and say, we're I can't forgot the name of it. But anyway, if anybody knows it, you can type it into there. But the people say that the governments have no right to control them in any way. And they keep saying that as the police haul them to the police station. Because nevertheless, in this world, we still have to render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. We still have to go to work. We still have to eat. We still have to take care of things here. That's obvious. It's not something that we're escaping from reality. We're running right into reality. But we also understand the reality is that everything that is appearing is made of the fabric of mind. Everything that is seen is mind. Everything that's seeing is mind. And it is this constant, and this is the only constant that is set forth in the mind, in the sutras, is this constant of Buddha nature, and Buddha nature is that which does not move, does not grow old, is not born, is not destroyed. It doesn't increase or decrease. If you run across something and you want to measure, is this mind or is this an imagination of mind, which is important, that we need to distinguish between the phenomena and the intrinsic nature of mind. This is so important in our practice. So this whole dream that I'm having is all about that, is trying to determine what is phenomenal and what is the noumenon, what is the base, the mind ground, where everything comes from. It isn't something that's there to negate things or to destroy them. It can be destroyed because it belongs to mind. Even something that happened who knows how many years ago, it still belongs to mind. Okay, we continue. And all of this cleaning is occurring in a dream. The dream is what makes it, but then again, it is not our mind, but mind. So it's not our mind, our personality, but it's mind. We want to superimpose our personality onto mind. It is okay to have a personality. Master Sheng had a great personality, but he was clear about mind. He's clear about that he could not be found in that personality. There was nothing there that lingered on. So it's this right view of seeing things, and it's this constant looking and hammering, or in my theme for tonight, this rolling of these concepts, which and sometimes appear to be contradictory to each other, but they're not. They are really a clear, but we have to approach them from a different viewpoint. We can't approach them from the idea of an occupant of this world as a sentient being. We understand via perfected wisdom what the sentient being is, and it's an appearance. But this corporal body is not the Buddha body. the Buddha body, if you want to see the Buddha body, just look at everybody on the screen and where they're sitting at. Go outside and look out on the sky. It's all Buddha body. We don't personify the Buddha. That's a big mistake. We're devotional, and as you see, I have my altar in the back. I'm very devotional, actually very devotional, but I understand what those statues represent. They represent our own intrinsic nature, our own intrinsic qualities, the characteristics of perfected wisdom. We don't have perfected wisdom. I don't have perfected wisdom, but I'm perfecting it. The more I perfect it, the less I become attached to the appearances in this world. I still, get sick. And at times I suffer if Gilbert is around. And when he's not around, then actually I've been found this body to be very, very productive. And so it is just in how we use this body and understand it. We don't have to say, well, goodbye, and I go outside and jump off the balcony. And that's it. It isn't in this way. There's a purpose to this body. There's a purpose of why I'm here. There's an understanding that I've been here before. And I woke up a little bit late. And it takes a long time to really become good at Buddha Dharma. It takes a lot of studying. Santa's kind of smiling and she understands it. I mean, a lot of you, I see Mina there, and Mina went from a social practitioner to a good practitioner in her group, all of them, because they began to study in earnest, sincerely study. And I went, holy crud, how did you guys get to this point that you're understanding what I'm saying? And it's as a presenter of the Dharma, there's a great satisfaction when you're seeing the smiles on people's faces, you're seeing them nodding their heads and understanding what you're saying, and they're no longer looking like a deer in the headlights. And it's okay. You can look like a deer in the headlights. That's natural. Okay. But little by little, as you practice, it starts to begin to make more sense, but in a different way than we think of how things make sense. Okay, we continue on. So we are an illusion. We are components of a dream. And as I've often said, that we in this world are made of the very fabric of mind. So who is to be saved or delivered? And so we come back to that. And all of this is running through the sheets that are now in the drying cycle in my head. And who's to be delivered? Who's to be saved? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the two times I've had these dreams, these instructional dreams. And then the third one is going to be, I'm going to go over part of the teachings of the child of inconceivable radiance. And that will be answered in that, because it is probably the highest level probing of Buddha Dharma. If things are non-existent, if sentient beings are real and not real, who is to be saved? And it's important to look at that, and it's because all of that cannot be truly realized without perfecting wisdom. That's very, very important. When you perfect the wisdom, then the generosity, the patience, everything comes all together, and it is demonstrated. We practice it in a way in that we keep the mind calm and with right view demonstrate that understanding. It's different than trying to say, I am now going to become a monk. How am I going to become a monk? Well, I'll put on a robe and I'll burn some incense and say, oh, Mani Padme Hum, now I'm a monk. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We have to work in earnest in what we're doing and understanding and deciphering the codes in this world, the codes of karma that are interlaced with everything. There's collective karma of an entire society or a family, of generational karma, of instant karma. I see them sometimes on YouTube where there's some guys walking across the street yelling at the person in the car and just saying all these foul things, and he's just looking and as he's crossing, and then he hits the street post on the other side of the street really hard, and that was like instant karma. And that I don't think he's going to do that again, or you hope he wouldn't. But everything has some kind of a karma, whether it's how people look, whether they have a mark on them, a beauty mark or an unbeauty mark, whether all the things, they're all interlaced. And the practice of Buddha Dharma enables us to decipher these codes, to see why things are there. But most important is that it enables us to determine through body, speech, and mind what will be the next things that we're going to do, so that we can maintain a harmony in our environment. Okay. We are so ignorant to the truth that we are in an illusory world. More than that, we are an illusion as well. We are compelled by greed, hatred, and ignorance to continue in this dream without discovering our noble essence. What a pity. Once awakening, then the mind discovers the sweet nectar of Amrita, and I'll defer to Santa to say it in the right way. It's Amrta.
Amrita.
Huh?
Amrita.
Amrita. Amrita?
Yeah.
Amrita. Yeah, sometimes they spell it actually that way, but the spelling that I normally see is this Amrta, but it's actually like Marita sound in English, almost Amrita. And it's a very interesting term, and because I've been kind of playing with things like this, and it says when we awaken, we discover the sweet nectar of Amrita. In my mundane analogy of the cleaning the bedding, the importance is not in the comfort of lying down, but of lying down of the self. So it is laying the self down that we find the comfort. This term Amrita is really, really profound. It's very, very deep. Does anybody know what this term means? Shloka, you should have an inroad on this one. I know that Santa does because I've been talking her ear off for a while on that. Nobody know? Can you type the word name out for the people to see? And it says, it is the process of realizing this nectar. Now, it's very funny. This nectar is very sweet. It's an elixir. It's a good elixir. It's the elixir of immortality. Pretty good, huh? So, what Arvind Ambrosia of the Gods, Arvind's definition is one connected with kind of a pre-Buddhism way of looking at it. So the word predated Buddhism, but it is this idea that there's an ambrosia of the gods. In Christianity, I guess they would call it mana, this kind of food that isn't really food, and but it is much more deeper than just simply saying it's an ambrosia. Although the Tibetans picked up on that kind of a meaning as well, but in the Chan Mahayana Buddhism, this term is referring to this immortality, and just like other Sanskrit words, there's so many definitions to them. It's absolutely amazing. When I say definitions, they have different meanings, but the thing is that in this samsaric world, what do you think? Do you think that the amrita tastes good? What do you think, Santa? I'm gonna catch you off guard here. Do you think it tastes good?
Yes.
Yeah. You must like that bitter, astringent medicine. Because here in samsara, it's a bitter medicine we have to take. It's a medicine that is so bitter. Why is it bitter though? Why is it so bitter? Do you know, Santa?
Um, because it's kind of like how the world shake when somebody awakens. It's kind of like that.
The thing is, it's like I give you this bottle and you go, "What's in that bottle?" Oh, you can't believe it. This bottle is immortality. Wow, really? Yeah. It's not immortality that we think of, this low grade immortality. Why would the hell would you want to stay in this world, and be immortal? Do you realize that we'll probably blow up the world in another 100, 200 years or so, or we'll be slaves of robots? You know, that's not a good immortality. You could never die. And you go, where did the people go? Oh, they went a long time ago. But you're immortal, so don't worry about it. But I'm lonely. But are you really lonely? And isn't it that craving of not being lonely that causes you trouble? And I'm kind of shifting gears for a moment, but I'll go back to this analogy. Is it's a bitter medicine. Why? Because to you, you think it's very expensive. In this world, what would you is the most expensive thing that you would have to trade for something? Jake, you unmute him.
Yourself?
Yourself, your life, your life. As we see it, it's not just yourself where we'll say, okay, Jake, you are no longer Jake. You just lost your mind. No, you know, it's it's your life. You have to trade your life here to make the transition. It's okay. It's okay. Don't panic. You guys don't have fear. Don't switch off to something else. It's okay. It's a good trade. It's a good trade. You could trade for endless lifetimes in this world. So long as the world lives, we have to put that. I'm an attorney, so I have to put that caveat there. So long as there's a world here, you keep coming back. And the other guarantee is there's no guarantee you come back as a human. You could come back as a ghost. You could come back as a hell dweller. You could roll the dice and be a heaven dweller. Not bad. But you keep coming, and no matter where you're at, you still die and die and die and die. You're born and you die. But suppose you could be free from that. Would you trade it then? it's a bitter elixir to most people, because people will go, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to drink that and then find out, I made a mistake and I gave up my life. We're not selling your soul to the devil. Don't worry about that, okay? It's nothing like that. It's just realizing that this world is a dream. It doesn't matter to me. It when this body gives out, I'm coming back. I'm coming back to continue the work. I don't see it as a great place or a bad place. I've said many times that if the aliens come here, they'll probably put an X on the planet and say, don't go there. It's not a good place to go to vacation unless you want to hunt and have a taste for humans. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going sci-fi on you. But in any case, it isn't in this way. This bitter, bitter elixir is because we think we're giving up something precious, our ego. Our ego. I want to finish, and I'm going to jump to next week's program, which is called Rolling Part 2. It might be in this one. I have to see. Okay. I haven't really finished with Armta, but sorry about that. What happened was I wrote one and then I wrote another one this morning, so I'm trying to put them together. But let me read this part here. In this part, I was saying I was just rolling and trying to get off the plate. Now today, with my practice, it is not as a gloomy plate. Is as a room with three characters that are trapped in it. Now, there is a play by John Paul Sartre from 1946, and it's called Noexus. I don't know if anybody's read it or heard about it. If you did, just kind of wave your hand. Not too many waves. Sam reads everything, so so that's all right. So No Exit, it's worth taking a look at least Wikipediaing it, and it says no exit in No Exit, which he remarks. One of the characters remarks listen to this. This is kind of cool, but it's scary, and then it'll make you want to drink the Kool-Aid. I mean the elixir. And it says, hell is other people. Think about that. So these people end up in a hell where they're all three of them stuck for eternity with three people, random people, which obviously after a while they're going to get on each other. And so they say hell is other people. So you can imagine after they died where they ended up. They ended up in hell, having stuck there for eternity. And it says, here we are bound to a world that must endure, a world in which our value is based on the consciousness of other people. And let me see if I can read this part. Because it says, Sartre's ideas about the look and perpetual ontological struggle of being caused to see oneself, as an object from the view of another consciousness. Isn't that what we're doing here? I mean, he really hit this on the head. He doesn't have a solution for it, but he really can see whether this is heaven or hell, it's still hell because everything we do, let's say that you were on a deserted island, right? And you won the lotto. Well, whoopee. What are you going to spend your money on? Who are you going to tell? I went through and I graduated from law school. And am I then this establishing myself as an object from the view of different consciousness? Oh, Gilbert, he's very smart. He went to law school. Or he studies the Dharma. And is that my self-worth? What other people think about me? And they don't even exist or not exist. Think about this. This is like really, really heavy. Because this is what we measure ourselves in this world. And we suffer. Oh, we suffer so much about why this person thinks this about us. Oh my gosh. If they ever knew that, I was arrested for, and you can put your own thing down there. I'm not even going to begin to say that, or else somebody will say, he's talking about me. Whatever crime it is, I don't want people to know that. Or that I got an F on my first grade spelling test. I'm trying to not come up with things that are so sensitive, but think about it. Everything's predicated on that. Or what? I lost my job. I lost my wife. Well, actually, I didn't lose my wife, but I know where she's at, but she's not with me. And all of these things that you look at, and we predicate it as being the object of somebody else's consciousness. This is kind of nuts. And although John Paul Sartre was very negative and he didn't have any solutions to it, the only reason I raised the specter of his three-person hell is just to show you, this is not a really great place to stay. You have a choice. And that's what's important, is that when you understand you have a choice, we can do that. So next week comes part 2 of these dreams, or how Gilbert became an entree on a Chinese platter. It's true. I kid you not. You have to stay for that one. The dream was me being an entree on a Chinese platter, and how am I going to get off the plate? Very weird, but the Dharma that came out of it was really amazing. So we'll pick that up next week. I'll open it up for questions. Thank you for listening. No questions? Wendy. Okay, Wendy, go ahead. We'll unmute you. Okay, you're unmuted.
Thank you. My question is, so if you are not the conscious, basically, I live by what other people think of me. Such great value I put on other people's consciousness, how they think. I would go to a great extent pour over broken glasses to please others, just because I want them to have a good
opinion of you.
But that's nuts, right? I know, but I suffered so much greatly. Like how to get out of it. So how not to be like. Thank
you. Well, you got to have better dreams. I'm kidding you. The thing is that listen very carefully to what I'm saying, because uh, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, I don't want to have to please anybody, so I don't need to do anything. It isn't in that way. It is just that we understand that motivation of the self that is constantly trying to be something to other people, whether it's a policeman, a friend, a teacher, uh, a student, whatever. We are wearing these hats. Sometimes it's okay. Other times it puts so much pressure on us because somebody wants something of us that maybe we can't provide them for in that moment. So it's different. The more, Wendy, that you study in this way and kind of contemplate what I said, and then next week too will help to fulfill this, to try to bring this around, and it will make a difference. It will make a difference. You will see, you know, what you need to do, not what you want to do to advance yourself. When I say advance yourself, meaning to put yourself in a good light with other people, and um, and it isn't in that way. We follow the function of what we need to do. As a parent, we can be a hard parent. We can be a loving parent. We can't always be a loving parent um, if the demands of the child are unreasonable. And so, but you look at it and you use your wisdom to see what to do. Sometimes you can say no. Sometimes you can say yes. It's very different. You use this wisdom. Recently, I had one of the students that was telling me that her daughter, who's already has a postgraduate degree, wanted to get a dog or a cat, and she's living abroad from the U.S. and 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 I said, why not? Why not let her have a dog or a cat so she can learn responsibility? Then it's not all just about her and me. Now she has to care and make sure that that animal is fed, is groomed, has a bed, has a place to go to the restroom, and or has to be walked, on a regular basis. So it will teach responsibility. All of these things. So when we see it, we understand the world. And sometimes it's kind of things where we say, oh, she doesn't have that. But the message you're saying to them is, you're not responsible to do that. But the only way she's going to know is by trying. And if she tries and she becomes responsible, that's great. And if she doesn't, then it's it is something that at least she tried to do it. So we see the world differently. We see the world differently. We don't try to see it to be the pleasing parent, which is really hard to do, if you have demanding kids and they know how to twist you. So you have to be the one that has wisdom, and there's not always an easy answer to all of that. So you'll be okay. Wendy, you're okay. You're listening to the Dharma. This should give you joy. This is something that the ups and downs that you have, there are probably people in this group here that would trade you for their ups and downs. And so it is just the cost of doing business on earth. So when we understand that and we say, well, maybe it might be the time to practice a little more seriously. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have adversity, but you're going to be able to handle that adversity. Don't let that self drive the bus, okay? They'll turn it into a clown bus. Don't do that. You drive the bus. Your wisdom drives, okay? You settle down. That when I say the you, I'm talking about mind, not your ego. It will work. You're doing all the things. Sooner or later, all of this is going to pay off because you've been listening sincerely and it's going to click. This is a different lecture tonight simply because of the fact that I'm turning the diamond to a different facet, and maybe this one people will someone will look in there and go, whoa, I can see all the way through. But you'll be fine, okay? Amitofa. I'll keep you in my blessings too. Okay, Suzanne.
So I wrote down my question so that I would remember it for the question and answer period at the end. You were talking about almost what I heard was being in samsara and at the same time being in the Pure Land.
In the absolute.
Absolute, that's the word. And we have heard you say things as if, we slice each moment as finely as we can and to live in the moment. And I'm trying to string together the thought chain so I make sense. So if we vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings, and that too is a possibility, are we trying to form it in a way that will make sense? Are we the innumerable sentient beings from moment to moment that we can deliver?
We're not different from them.
Each moment, right, because everything is mind.
Everything is mind, so we're not different from them. We're not exactly the same. We share karma, and there's karma we don't share. But outside of samsara, that's irrelevant because there's no karma outside of samsara.
Right.
Because everything is mind. That's the absolute side. The samsara training is, that there's karma. So that's why the master Ling Chi said that he searched for 12 years for this thing called karma and couldn't find anything the size of a mustard seed because he was speaking from the absolute. And so that's the thing that, because at that point that will cause confusion amongst a lot of people where they go, but the sutras all talk about karma and everything else. The Buddha talks about karma, but that's only applicable to samsara. And so again, you have one foot in samsara and the other one straddles the absolute, and that's what makes it work, and that's resolves what appears to be apparent contradictions. And I say apparent contradictions because there's no contradictions whatsoever, but they appear to be contradictions in the cogitating mind of a sentient being. Okay, but yeah, the very fact that you're asking those questions and probing is mind work. You're working towards that, so that's good. I mean, that's what you should be doing. Okay. Tori, you're up next.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. The concept Amrita, if I pronounce it correctly, it was so intriguing. It gets me thinking a lot. And I guess if a person, I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this, is that I guess if a person looks from a perspective, they go on live on forever, kind of like a vampire. If I look at it from that perspective, it's terrible, right? But then self-nature, that's eternal as well, right? So if I look at it from that perspective, then it is ambrosia. So
yeah, absolutely. It depends on how you look at it. The bitter medicine is saying, well, Tori, the good news is your mind is free. The bad news is there's no you. And that's when the ego starts rebelling and saying, you don't listen to him. You got to find a different religion. Find one that different way of being created or whatever.
Better dreams that you were talking about.
Yeah, but and again, this is you're catching the point of my lecture. You're Suzanne, the same way. You're catching this idea of this straddling, depending on how you look at it, there's karma or there's no karma. And all of these things are a rolling of Buddha doctrine.
Yeah.
And you have to see them, and they're rolling. You don't try to say, I got it, it's this way, no, it isn't in that way. It is the process of rolling them and rolling with them in this world, and understanding that ultimately the way to do it is drive everything via your vows. And these vows are not the precepts. The 5 precepts are sentient being vows. Okay, so I think recently you took the 5 precepts, right, Tori?
Oh, not recently. It's been 2 years. No, I did the Bodhisattva precepts last year.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, it was the Bodhisattva precepts. Okay, so the 5 precepts you took. When you take the Bodhisattva precepts, the difference is this: is those precepts of the Bodhisattva precepts, they're vows that last lifetime after lifetime. That's why they're so special. And they're so solemn to go through, because you were making a decision not only to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, but you're coming back via these vows to deliver these sentient beings, albeit that they're illusory, or they're of mind themselves. So they're not completely imaginary. They belong to mind. They don't have any independent substance to them, because they're made of the substance of mind. And so in our practice, what we do moment to moment, rather than let the ego drive things. So you saw that when the ego drives, it can really make a mess of things. But when you let go of that ego, then what drives this body is those vows. They're already into place. You don't have to wait for the next lifetime and say, here I come back as a bodhisattva, or here I'm doing. There's no such thing. You come in just like everybody else. You're going to be kicking and screaming, and somewhere along the line you have to awaken. But the conditions will be there for you to be able to awaken earlier and stronger. And just as in this lifetime, when you awoke, it's strong. It was like, okay, all right, I'm awake. It's not kind of drowsy. I'll go back to sleep. I'd rather go to this party. I'd rather do this, or I'd rather watch what's on the soap operas or whatever. No, it's like, all right, I'm here and I'm ready to go. And there's this point where this is awakening, and everybody that really practices well gets that awakening. That awakening is time to go to work, and then it's trying to remember your vows and set your vows into motion, which will happen because of the strength of the vows. Is so important. It doesn't matter past, present, or future. Those vows will be set into motion. So it is in this way that we practice. We don't practice self or ego. We practice self-nature of mind, and that makes a difference. But yeah, that's the way it is. And I'm probably, a lot of you have had this awakening. It's the first step to do that, and that's what Shifu said, that to vow to deliver sentient beings before yourself is the initial generation of the Bodhi heart of a bodhisattva. So what he's saying is, this generation means like it's there, it's already there. This Bodhi heart is there, but you've got to plug it in, and if you have a generator there, then the very first thing that happens when you turn that generator on, the mind generator, is that you have an interest in other people, and this vow will come out by virtue of the fact that this isn't the first time you've taken this vow. So you see things in this way, in a different way. There's no past, present, or future. You see that as an actualization of the vows as they're happening right now and as they happened in the past. Some people may feel it for the first time. I don't believe this is the first time you've come around on this. So you see it this way and you put it into motion, okay, and it'll work. But yeah, it's like, okay, time to get it going, and you turn the generator on, and that's good. So it will work. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Wendy's still there, but I think she forgot to turn off her thing, unless.
No, I think she put it, raise her hand again.
Oh, she did? Okay, come on back then. Wendy? Well, that's not Wendy.
Oh, did I really forgot to put it down.
Okay,
But,
no problem. No problem. Don't worry. Arvind, do you have a question?
I do. I think my question was related to two things you mentioned. So if there is no, if self neither exists nor does it not exist, and the idea of the perfected wisdom's practice is to extinguish the sense of, or the idea of ego and self. What do we actually mean when we say freedom or liberation from birth and death? In the sense, if I'm already at, if all I am is just a collection of causes and conditions, and when my physical body dies, whatever happens to the bodily constituents, it disperses in ether, whatever happens. What does that mean? In what way do we even understand the notion of being free from birth and death? And the other being, when you just spoke about like the vows continuing, lifetime after lifetime of what? Um, what do we mean by, where does this continuity anchor itself when we have no clear sense of self to define that way? I'm sorry if my question is vague, but yeah.
No, your question is right on. Your question is where it should be, in terms of this, because Arvind, we don't take anything as a given, okay? Sometimes it's difficult. We have to have faith in the teacher, faith in the Buddha, and faith in ourselves. But we have to look into it. We use that as a foundation for us to contemplate this, and where your answer will be. But this whole idea is, when have you had dreams? Let me ask you, have you ever had a dream where something's chasing you?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you, when the thing is chasing you, wouldn't you like to know that you could just press a button and get out of that dream right in that moment?
Yeah.
Well, that's Buddha Dharma. That you can press the button and it neutralizes the dream. You're still in the, you wake up from that dream, you're still in a dream, but you've neutralized the dreams. And the dreams that we were talking about, and Wendy was talking about, these things, these vexations, things that are happening to her, if you can push the button to neutralize those things, that's freedom and ease of body and mind. It's a liberation. Even here, we nevertheless have a liberation. I don't tempt fate and say we're free from adversity. Adversity comes. I'm getting older. One day I'm going to get very, very sick, and I will die. Some people die very quickly. Some people die lingering. I don't know what kind of death I'm going to have, but I just have to prepare for that and understand that and have no fear of that. Right now, I'd say the fear that I have is not being able to lay down enough Buddha Dharma to people. and to touch them and to set into motion. And I'm getting there where I'm developing some very stellar senior students and people that will continue with the Buddha Dharma after I'm gone. And that's dysfunction. And so I'm in the dream, but I have one foot out of the dream. But the other foot is kept in the dream by virtue of the vows. So Tori, that's what pulls you back here to this world. And and that pulls you into the job that you have, because you are more capable and adept at helping the people than they are of themselves to be able to deal with their problems. And so in your noble profession, that's what you can contribute here. And little by little, it helps people. But little by little, that you will also bring people to the Dharma. Okay. And so that, again, we don't knock on doors and say Buddha loves you. We use the demonstration of our wisdom to show people that there is a way of living that reflects, that demonstrates this perfected wisdom. Okay, so you don't think your questions are at all are lower level. They're what they should be, and this whole class that I'm talking about now is showing you that that's what you're doing too. You're rolling this. You're rolling and saying, well, who's being delivered? How do I deliver? What is this in this dream here? And it's the well-known advisors that help you kind of redirect that so it stays on task. So, but that is what I'm showing you is how you have to do it to be able to let these questions come up, challenge the questions, challenge the teacher. This is very, very important for the development. If you just come and listen and you're not processing it, then it's much slower. It's like cooking something on a crock pot instead of putting it on on a higher heat, and you'll bring it there. If you put it on too hot, then you'll mess the whole thing up, but it's just the right temperature. Okay. Any other questions? Still got a little bit of time. Anybody had a question? Okay. So next week, I will again talk about how I ended up on a Chinese combo platter. I'll be back with you in a moment, Wendy. So it was a very strange dream, but these are that way. But they're very, very interesting. So that should keep you, waiting with bated breath to hear how I extricate myself from that food imbroglio. Okay, Wendy, go ahead. Bye, Letty.
Okay, thank you. So you keep saying this jump into the void thing. I don't know if it's connected to, that when you are hanging on a cliff, you're hanging on the branch, and you look up and you ask God, help me. So God said, let go. So well, you're supposed to let go, but I just can't. Anyway, it's kind of like, how do you let go?
I'm trying to control my response with that. I think the story was one that one is climbing a cliff, and they spot like there's a tiger up on the top of the cliff, and there's a wolf at the bottom, and they spot a strawberry plant there, and they take one of the strawberries fruit and eat it and taste the tartness and sweetness and sourness of the strawberry. It is in this way. This is like an old Zen they call it like Zen stories, very clever stories, but there's actually some profoundness to it, which is that sometimes the sutras say, you people who haven't figured this out, when King Yama comes for you to pay the price, will you be ready? And the thing is that we understand going into this that the body that you have is something that is impermanent. It only has a finite amounts of breaths to take, but that should not prevent you from tasting the life and understanding that, but also understanding that through Buddha Dharma, even if you come back the next time, or even in this lifetime, you can let go of the suffering. The pain of the body, pain of situations, those continue on in accordance with the karmic forces in this samsaric world. You're not immune from those, but you can handle them with wisdom and understand that this is whatever adversities you have, they are not permanent as well. And the more you practice, the more opportunity you have to be able to direct by the mind where I can't really say you will be reborn, but a semblance of you will come back into this world by virtue of the vows. So it's good. So don't worry about that. When they say let go, don't put pressure on yourself to kind of let go. You in due time, there's different ways that one goes into the void. Sometimes they get sucked in. Sometimes they get pushed. Other times they go in willingly. There's no set way to do that. And if people did that, they would be all lining up with this preconceived notion of how to jump. But it isn't in this way. It is simply that we are using wisdom to course through this world. That's enough. The wisdom will guide us. Okay? So don't be afraid of this world. Don't be afraid of your lot in this world. You're okay. You're all right. And by virtue of the fact that you're listening to Buddha Dharma, you cannot believe how precious that is to hear this. It's very, very amazing. And so please bear that in mind, and please keep asking your questions, okay? It's important. Okay, any other questions? Nope. Okay, so that's it. Hello, Iris. You finally showed up on